Your brother? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper, as her phone lit up again, the message still open, the words burning, the old fool's signing the transfer. The champagne flute trembled in her hand, but her smile never faltered. Across the table, the billionaire she called darling laughed, blind to the blade behind her lips. The restaurant glowed with gold and deceit, every sparkle a reflection of the lie. My pulse pounded with a single thought: tell him and lose everything, or stay silent and watch him drown in trust. The choice wasn't between truth and safety. It was between my soul and my survival. And the next morning, my world didn't just change. It was handed to me on a piece of matte black titanium. The air in Aurelia, a 3-Michelin-star sanctuary on the 60th floor of a Manhattan skyscraper, was different. It was thinner, cleaner, and smelled faintly of money and white truffle. For Maya Rossi, a 23-year-old art history student at NYU. It was the rarefied atmosphere of a planet she was only allowed to visit on a work visa. Her real world, a cramped 4th-floor walk up in the East Village with a mountain of her late mother's medical debt, smelled of burnt coffee and anxiety. Every shift was an 8-hour exercise in invisibility. She was to be a ghost in a crisp black uniform, a silent, efficient phantom who refilled water glasses, cleared plates, and anticipated needs without ever being truly seen. Maya was good at it. Her observational skills, honed by years of studying the minute details in Renaissance paintings, made her an exemplary waitress. She could spot the subtle shift in a diner's posture that signaled he was ready for the check, the almost imperceptible frown that meant the Sumeyer had missed the mark. Tonight she was assigned to Section C, the row of secluded tables with the best views of the glittering urban sprawl. And at the prized corner table, 7 sat Corbin Langley. Even if you didn't know his name, you knew he was someone. He wasn't loud or flashy like the tech bros who occasionally swaggered in. Langley possessed a quiet gravitational pull. In his mid-50s, with hair the color of distinguished silver and eyes that held a certain weary intelligence, he wore a bespoke navy suit with the casual grace of a man born into it. He was old money, the kind that owned the buildings, not just rented the penthouses. Corbin Langley was the head of Langley Global, a private equity firm with a portfolio as vast and varied as his fabled art collection. And on his arm was Arabella Dorsey. Arabella was, in a word, breathtaking. She was a decade or two younger than him, with hair the color of dark honey cascading over a slinky emerald green dress that probably cost more than Mia's entire semester of tuition. Her laughter was a musical tinkling sound that filled the small pockets of silence around their table. She would touch his arm, lightly lean in to whisper something in his ear. Her movements a perfectly choreographed ballet of affection. Maya had served them twice before. The first time she'd been AED. They seemed like the perfect couple, a modern-day fairy tale. The second time she noticed the cracks. She saw how Arabella's smile didn't quite reach her eyes when Corbin was looking at his menu, how her gaze would flick around the room, assessing, calculating. Tonight was the third time, and the performance was beginning to unravel. The evening started as usual. Maya presented the menus, her voice a soft, professional murmur. "Good evening, Mr. Langley. Mr. Dorsey, may I get you started with an apparent this evening?" "The usual for me," Maya Corbin said, giving her a small, tired smile. He remembered her name. That was rare. It was also why this was so much harder. He was a person, not just a headline. "Of course, sir, a Macallan 25 neat." "And for you, my dear?" he asked, turning to Arabella, his entire being softening. "Ah, Royale, darling. Let's celebrate." She purred, her crimson-nailed hand resting possessively on his. "Celebrate what?" he asked, his eyes crinkling with genuine affection. "Just us," she said, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper. Maya retreated to the bar, the knot in her stomach tightening. It was the same feeling she'd gotten as a teenager watching her own father fall for the saccharine flatteries of the woman who would eventually break their family apart. Her mother, a practical, no-nonsense woman, had been too real, too tired from working 2 jobs to compete with the fantasy. Maya saw the same tragic pattern playing out in front of her, only on a scale that involved billions of dollars and a woman who was a master of her craft. She delivered the drinks, her hands steady despite the turmoil inside her. As she placed the Kia Royale on its coaster, Arabella's phone, a brand new iPhone encased in gold, buzzed on the table. It lay screen up next to her plate. Arabella glanced at it, a flicker of annoyance crossing her perfect features, before she masked it with a radiant smile at Corbin. "It's just my brother Liam. So needy." She sighed, rolling her eyes playfully. "Always worried about me in the big city." Corbin chuckled, reaching over to squeeze her hand. "He's a good brother. We should have him over for dinner at the penthouse next week." "Oh, darling, that would be lovely," she said. But her attention was on the phone. As Corbin took a slow sip of his scotch, mesmerized by the view, Arabella picked up her phone. Believing herself to be shielded by Corbin's angle and Maya's respectful distance, she unlocked it to reply. But Mia wasn't at a respectful distance. She was doing her job standing a few feet away, her eyes scanning the table for any needs, and she saw it. She saw it all. Her eyes, trained to catch every detail, didn't mean to pry, but the screen was angled perfectly towards her. The wallpaper was a selfie of Arabella with another man, a handsome, smirking man with dark hair, both of them on a boat, the sun kissing their skin. It was definitely not her brother. And then the message preview at the top of the screen from a contact named Liam. "Liam, did the old fool mention the Geneva transfer, yet need to book our flights to Bali. Don't forget the story about the charity donation. He'll fall for it." Maya felt the air leave her lungs. It was like a physical blow. This wasn't just a simple affair. It was a calculated, predatory con. The old fool. The words echoed in the silent, screaming space of Mare's mind. She looked at Corbin Langley's face, at the genuine warmth in his eyes, as he looked at this woman, and felt a wave of protective fury. He wasn't a fool. He was a man in love, or at least in deep affection, and his trust was being weaponized against him. Her training, her every instinct for self-preservation screamed at her, "Look away! Forget it! It's not your business. You need this job." The rent was due in a week. The final payment for her mother's headstone was overdue. Losing this job wouldn't just be an inconvenience. It would be a catastrophe. Marco, the restaurant manager, was a stickler for protocol, and bothering the Cleonel was the cardinal sin. But then she saw her mother's face in her mind's eye, her kind, tired face. She remembered the day her father left, the hollowed-out look of betrayal that had never quite faded. She had been a helpless child then. She wasn't now. Arabella finished her text, a small triumphant smirk playing on her lips, before she composed her features back into a mask of innocence and placed the phone face down. The dinner continued. Course after course of exquisitely prepared food arrived and was cleared. Maya moved like an automaton, her mind racing. Every time Arabella laughed her tinkling laugh or touched Corbin's hand, Mia felt a fresh wave of disgust. She watched Corbin speak about his philanthropic work, about a new wing he was funding at the Met for emerging artists. He was passionate, engaged, and completely oblivious that the woman beside him was allegedly planning to route his charitable donations to a Bali getaway with her lover. The conflict inside Maya was a raging storm. To speak up was professional suicide. To stay silent felt like being an accomplice. Finally, as she served their espresso, her decision solidified. It was a terrifying, reckless, and possibly stupid decision, but it was the only one she could live with. Corbin was signing the bill, a heavy black credit card already resting on the leather folio. Arabella had excused herself to the powder room, probably to call Liam and finalize their plans. This was her only chance. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Her palms were slick with wet. She took a deep, steadying breath, walked to the table, and stood beside Corbin Langley. "Mr. Langley," She began, her voice barely a whisper. He looked up from the bill, a questioning but not unkind look in his eyes. Yes, Maya. Was everything to your satisfaction? Everything was wonderful, sir. Thank you. Her throat felt tight. Sir, I apologize for this gross breach of protocol. What I am about to say is unprofessional, and you have every right to have me fired for it. His brow furrowed slightly. He put his pen down, giving her his full attention. The sheer force of his focus was intimidating. Go on. Maya swallowed hard, her gaze darting towards the entrance of the powder room, praying Arabella wouldn't return just yet. Sir, trust it's the most valuable thing we have. It's more valuable than anything on this menu, more valuable than the view from this window. She was rambling, quoting herself from her internal monologue. She needed to be direct. When of course he was texting her, brother earlier, she said, putting a slight deliberate emphasis on the word brother. Her phone was angled towards me. I saw the screen. I wasn't trying to look, I swear, but it was unavoidable. Corbin's expression didn't change, but a stillness came over him. The air grew heavy. The messages she was sending and receiving, they weren't of a familial nature. Maya said, her voice shaking slightly but clear. And they mentioned a Geneva transfer and a charity donation. Sir, I know this is none of my business, but I believe you are being profoundly deceived. She had said it. The words hung in the air, terrible and irreversible. Corbin Langley stared at her for a long moment. His face was an unreadable mask of stone. Maya couldn't tell if he was angry, shocked, or dismissive. She felt a cold dread seep into her bones. She had just detonated a bomb and had no idea what the fallout would be. He didn't speak. He simply picked up his pen, made a final decisive stroke on the receipt, and pushed the folio back towards her. And then the tinkling sound of an approaching laugh announced Arabella's return. Arabella glided back to the table, her smile perfectly in place. She saw Maya standing there a little too close to Corbin, and her eyes narrowed for a fraction of a second. Is everything all right, darling? She asked, her voice dripping with sweetness as she placed a hand on Corbin's shoulder. Corbin looked from Maya's pale, determined face to Arabella's exquisitely beautiful one. The silence stretched thick and suffocating. Mia felt like a defendant awaiting a verdict. Maya was just ensuring our experience was satisfactory. Corbin finally said, his voice unnervingly neutral. He folded the customer copy of the receipt and tucked it into his jacket pocket. He did not look at Mia again. Relief and terror wared within Mayer. He hadn't exploded. He hadn't called for the manager, but he also hadn't acknowledged her words. He had simply shut down. Arabella, however, was no fool. She was a predator, and she had sensed a shift in the atmosphere. Oh, she said, her eyes now cold and hard as emerald chips locking onto Maya. And what exactly were you telling him, Waitress? The title was flung like an insult, a clear demarcation of their respective places in the world. Mear's throat was dry. I was just confirming the service was acceptable, Mr. Dorsey. Is that so? Arabella's smile was a predatory baring of teeth. She leaned closer to Corbin, whispering loud enough for Maya to hear. She seems a bit familiar, don't you think? Probably angling for a bigger tip. The accusation was designed to humiliate, to reduce Mia's desperate act of integrity to a grubby cash grab. It stung sharply. Before Mayer could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. Is there a problem here, Mr. Langley? It was Marco, the manager. He had the uncanny ability to appear whenever a situation deviated from the restaurant's meticulously crafted script. His face was a mask of professional concern, but his eyes, darting between Maya and the VVIP guests, held a glint of panic. Arabella seized the opportunity, turning the full force of her theatrical outrage on him. Yes, there is a problem, Marco, a significant one. This waitress... She gestured dismissively at Ma has been completely unprofessional. She was intruding on our private conversation, telling my fiancé absurd and malicious stories. Fiancé. The word landed with the force of a physical blow. So that was the end game. Marco's face paled. He turned to Maya, his expression hardening. Maya, what is she talking about? Maya began. But what could she say? The truth. She looked at Corbin, a silent plea for him to intervene, to give some sign that he'd heard her, that he believed her. He remained silent, his face a granite cliff. He simply stood up, pulling out Arabella's chair for her. It was a gesture of dismissal. He had made his choice, and it wasn't her. The cold, sick feeling of dread became a certainty. She had gambled and lost spectacularly. This employee, Arabella continued, her voice rising with manufactured indignation, accused me of the most disgusting things, insinuating that I am being unfaithful to Corbin. Can you imagine the audacity, this little nobody trying to poison our relationship? The scene was beginning to attract attention. Diners at nearby tables were starting to glance over, their curiosity piqued. For a restaurant like Aurelia, this was a 5-alarm fire. Marco grabbed Maya's arm, his grip surprisingly strong. My office now! He hissed, his voice low and furious. He then turned back to the couple, his face a symphony of apologies. Mr. Langley, Mr. Dorsey, I am so profoundly sorry. I cannot imagine what got into her. This is not the standard of Aurelia. Of course, there will be no charge for your meal tonight. Please accept my deepest apologies for this mortifying disturbance. Corbin simply gave a curt nod, his eyes still unreadable. He guided a distraught Arabella, who was now dabbing at perfectly dry eyes, towards the exit. Just before they left, Arabella glanced back over her shoulder at Maya. Her look was one of pure, venomous triumph. The walk to Marco's shoebox-sized office was a walk of shame. The whispers of her fellow waiters followed her, a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. She had broken the cardinal rule, and now she was being led to the slaughter. Marco closed the door, and the polished professional mask dropped in. His face was flushed with rage. Are you insane? He spat, his voice trembling with fury. Do you have any idea what you've just done? That was Corbin Langley. He doesn't just eat here, Maya. His company owns this entire building. His personal account is probably responsible for 15% of our annual revenue. Marco Watawa, shut up, he roared, slamming his hand on his small desk. Just shut up. I don't want to hear your pathetic excuses. You think you're some kind of hero, some kind of righteous crusader. You're a waitress. Your job is to serve food and be invisible, not to pass judgment on the lives of our guests. But she was robbing him blind, Maya cried, her voice breaking. I saw the messages. It was a con. I don't care if she was sacrificing a goat at the table. Marco yelled, his face inches from hers. You say nothing. You see nothing. That is the job. You just cost us our most important client. You've embarrassed the entire establishment, and you have certainly absolutely cost yourself your job. The words, though expected, still hit her with the force of a physical impact. Get your things, Marco said, his voice now cold and flat. You're fired. Your final paycheck will be mailed to you. Now get out of my sight before I call security to throw you out. Numbly, Maya walked to the staff locker room. The usual cheerful chatter was absent. Her colleagues avoided her eyes, shuffling away as she approached her locker. She was a pariah, an outcast. She quickly changed out of her uniform, the symbol of her now former life, into her worn jeans and thin t-shirt. As she stuffed the black uniform into her tote bag, her hand brushed against the tip folio from table 7. Marco, in his haste, had thrust it at her on the way to his office. With a trembling hand, she opened it. The bill was for one Talland 854667. Corbin Langley had paid the full amount, and on the tip line he had written a single, bold 0. But underneath the 0, on the merchant copy of the receipt that he had to have known she would see, he had scrolled 2 small, almost illegible words in pen. Thank you. Maya stared at the words, her mind reeling. What did it mean? Was it sarcasm, a cruel joke? Or was it a genuine acknowledgement, a sign that her kamikaze mission had on some level hit its target? It didn't matter. She was still fired. She was still facing an insurmountable pile of debt, and she was still utterly, terrifyingly alone. The elevator ride down from the 60th floor felt like a descent into hell. The doors opened into the glittering, indifferent lobby, and Maya walked out into the cool night air of a city that suddenly felt hostile and alien. The weight of her decision pressed down on her, crushing the air from her lungs. Tears she had refused to shed in front of Marco now streamed freely down her face. She had done the right thing. She knew it in her soul. But as she stood on the curb with less than $50 to her name, and the prospect of eviction looming, doing the right thing felt an awful lot like losing. The next morning, the world was gray. A dreary, drizzling rain wept against the single window of Maya's apartment, mirroring the bleak landscape of her future. She hadn't slept. The night had been a torturous marathon of replaying the scene at Aurelia, second-guessing her every move and staring at the growing pile of red-stamped bills on her small kitchen table. The 2 words on the receipt. Thank you had become a maddening enigma, a flicker of light in an overwhelming darkness that offered no real warmth. She was scrolling through a job site on her laptop, the listings for experienced fine dining server feeling like a sick joke when a sharp, authoritative knock echoed on her apartment door. It wasn't the gentle tap of a neighbor or the buzzed-in arrival of a delivery person. This was a knock that expected to be answered. Wiping the tear stains from her cheeks, Mia padded to the door, her heart giving a nervous flutter. She peered through the peephole, her view distorted by the fisheye lens. A man stood in the dingy hallway. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit with a severe haircut and an earpiece that was subtly visible. He looked completely out of place, like a Secret Service agent who had taken a very wrong turn. She hesitated, then slowly unlatched the 3 locks. "Can I help you?" she asked, opening the door just a crack. The man didn't smile. His expression was the one of polite professional neutrality. "Maya Rossi," he asked, his voice crisp and direct. "Yes, my name is Arthur Chen. I have a delivery for you from my employer." "Your employer?" Maya asked, confused. "I didn't order anything." Mr. Chen didn't answer the question. Instead, he held out a box. It was sleek black and heavy, about the size of a shoebox, with no markings, no labels, no return address. It radiated an aura of expensive mystery. "I was instructed to deliver this to you personally and to ensure you received it," he said, his gaze unwavering. Hesitantly, Mia took the box. It was cool and smooth to the touch. Who is it from?" she asked again. "My instructions are complete," Mr. Chen said with a slight formal bow of his head. He then turned and walked down the hallway, his expensive leather shoes making no sound on the worn linoleum. He didn't wait for a thank you. He simply disappeared down the stairwell. Maya stood in her doorway, holding the mysterious black box, her mind racing. Was this some kind of sick prank from Arabella, a box of horse manure mafia style? She brought it inside, locking the door behind her, and placed it on her cluttered coffee table. For a full minute, she just stared at it. Finally, her curiosity overwhelmed her fear. She lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in soft black foam, were 2 items. The first was a brand new smartphone, the latest model, also in black. It was sleek and cold. The second item stole her breath. It was a card matte black made of anodized titanium. It felt heavy, substantial in her hand. In the bottom corner was the familiar American Express logo, but this was no ordinary credit card. And in the center, embossed in elegant silver lettering, was her name, Maya Rossi. It was an American Express Centurion card, the legendary black card, the ultimate invitation, only status symbol reserved for the planet's wealthiest and most powerful individuals. It was an urban myth, a legend, something she had only heard whispers about from other waiters who had seen one maybe once in their entire careers. and it had her name on it. This had to be a mistake, a cruel, elaborate joke. She picked it up. It was real. The weight was undeniable. She ran her thumb over her embossed name. It was perfect. Beneath the foam, cut out where the card had rested, was a single folded piece of thick cream-colored cardstock. Her hands trembling, Maya unfolded it. On it was a short message typed in a simple, clean font. Ms. Rosie. The 0 on the tip line was for the benefit of prying eyes. Your integrity, however, is priceless. What you did last night required a level of courage that is exceedingly rare. It also confirmed a suspicion I have held for some time, but for which I lacked definitive proof. You were fired because of me. I will not allow your courage to result in your ruin. This card is yours. It has no preset spending limit. Consider any debts you have to be settled. Consider your financial worries to be over. But this is not merely a gift. It is an invitation. I have a much larger problem than an unfaithful girlfriend. You have proven yourself to be observant, discreet, and brave. These are qualities I find myself in desperate need of. I am offering you a job, a role for which there is no formal title. Your first task is simple. Acclimatize. Understand the world that people like Arabella inhabit. Buy new clothes. Dine at Balthazar. Visit the Fick collection. See the city not as a worker, but as a player. The phone in this box is encrypted and will be my sole means of communication with you. Await my instructions. Do not attempt to contact me through any other means. Do not discuss this with anyone. Your discretion is paramount. Welcome to the game. J.S. Mia sank onto her worn-out couch, the note fluttering from her fingers. She read it again and again. Her mind struggled to process the sheer absurdity of the situation. No preset spending limit. An invitation, a game. J.S. Corbin Langley. The thank you on the receipt hadn't been a joke. It had been a promise. He had seen her. He had believed her. And this was the consequence. Her first reaction was disbelief, quickly followed by a wave of pure, unadulterated terror. This was insane. It was the plot of a spy, not the life of an art history student from the East Village. What game? What larger problem? She picked up the card again. Maya Rossi. Could it be real? With a sudden, impulsive need for proof, she grabbed her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She navigated to the NYU tuition payment portal, her outstanding balance glaring at her from the screen. $14.0782. It was a figure that haunted her dreams. Her hands shook so violently she could barely type. She entered her name and then, taking a deep breath, she entered the 16 digits from the heavy black card. She typed in the security code, the expiration date. She clicked Submit Payment. The processing icon spun for what felt like an eternity. She expected an error message, a card declined notification that would bring this insane fantasy crashing down to earth. Instead, the screen refreshed. Payment successful. Your current balance is 0. Maya stared at the screen, her eyes wide. A sound escaped her lips, a choked sob that was half disbelief, half euphoria. It was real. The debt that had been a crushing weight on her shoulders for years. The reason she worked punishing hours and subsisted on instant noodles was gone. Just like that, she looked at the pile of bills on her table, the final notice for her mother's medical expenses. $28,450. She logged into the hospital's payment system, entered the numbers, clicked Submit. Payment successful. The eviction notice from her landlord demanding 2 months of back rent, $4,200. She navigated to the online payment portal, clicked Submit. Payment successful. In the space of 5 minutes, Maya had erased every single cent of debt that had chained her to a life of quiet desperation. The feeling was so overwhelming, so seismic, that she felt dizzy. She stumbled to her small kitchen and splashed cold water on her face, staring at her reflection in the cracked mirror. It was the same face, the same tired eyes, but everything was different. The chains were gone. She walked back to the coffee table and picked up the new phone. It powered on without a setup screen, opening directly to a simple clean home screen with only one app on it, a black icon with a silver S. She touched it. A secure messaging interface opened. There was one message received 2 minutes ago. Good. You've confirmed the card is real. Now your first lesson begins. Arabella believes she has won. She is celebrating with a shopping spree. She is currently at the Chanel boutique on Spring Street in Soho. Your task is not to confront her. It is to observe. Go to the same boutique, buy something, anything, and watch her learn her report back. A car is waiting for you downstairs. Maya's blood ran cold, then hot, with a thrill that terrified her. This was happening right now. She looked down at her frayed jeans and faded band t-shirt. She couldn't walk into a Chanel boutique dressed like this, but the note had said to acclimatize to become a player. With a surge of adrenaline-fueled resolve, she walked to her closet, her mind no longer thinking about rent or debt, but about something far more dangerous and exhilarating. The game she had just been invited to play. Stepping out of her building was like stepping into another reality. The drizzling rain had stopped, and parked at the curb, gleaming under the weak sunlight, was a black Mercedes-Benz S-Class. The driver, a different man from Mr. Chen, but with the same stoic professionalism, stepped out and opened the rear door for her without a word. The scent of rich leather and quiet power enveloped her as she slid into the back seat. This wasn't a taxi. It was a chariot. The 20-minute ride to Soho was a blur. Maya's mind was a frantic whirlwind of fear and exhilaration. She was an imposter, a wolf in, well, not even sheep's clothing yet. She was a mouse in mouse's clothing on her way to the wolf's den. She had done her best pulling on the one black dress she owned, simple from a thrift store, but clean and classic. Still, she felt utterly inadequate as the car pulled up a block away from the Chanel boutique. "The driver will wait," was the only thing the man said before she got out. Walking down Spring Street was different now. The storefronts that were once just glass panes to press her nose against were now possibilities. It was a dizzying thought. She saw the boutique, its iconic black and white awning, a beacon of unattainable luxury. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the heavy glass door. The air inside was hushed and fragrant, a temple of tweed and quilted leather. A sales associate with impossibly perfect posture and a polite assessing smile immediately approached her. "Bonjour, madame. Welcome to Chanel. Is there anything I can help you find today?" "I'm just looking," Maya stammered, feeling the woman's eyes flick over her simple dress and worn-out ankle boots. And then she saw her. Arabella was holding court in the center of the boutique. She was trying on a classic flap bag, admiring her reflection in a three-way mirror. She was laughing with her sales associate, a familiar tinkling sound that now sounded like grating metal to Maya. And standing next to her, holding a half-dozen shopping bags from other high-end stores, was her brother Liam. Seeing him in the flesh sent a jolt through Maya. He was handsome in a slick, predatory way, with a confident smirk that matched the photo on Arabella's phone. They weren't acting like siblings, they were acting like partners. The way his hand rested for a moment too long on the small of her back, the conspiratorial whisper, the shared smug glance, it was all there, clear as day. Maya quickly turned her back, her heart pounding. She had to follow the instructions. Observe, acclimatize, become a player. She walked over to a display of sunglasses, pretending to browse. She picked up a pair using the reflective lenses to watch the scene unfold. Corbin felt so guilty about that little waitress making a scene. Arabella was saying, her voice carrying easily in the quiet store. He insisted I treat myself to make up for the trauma. She let out a peal of laughter. Liam smirked. He's a good man. Liam said, his voice laced with an irony so thick it was almost sarcastic. He's a perfect mark. Arabella corrected him in a lower voice, turning to adjust the bag on her shoulder. Did you speak with Zurich? The framework is in place, Liam murmured back. Once he transfers the seed money for your children's art foundation, we can liquidate and disappear within 12 hours. Maya's blood ran cold. So that was it. The charity donation from the text message. It wasn't a few thousand. It was the seed money for a fake foundation. A multi-million-dollar exit strategy. She had to stay calm. She had to play her part. The sales associate who had greeted Mia was now hovering nearby, her polite smile wearing thin. Maya knew she had to do something, or she'd be politely asked to leave. She took a deep breath, walked over to a rack of jackets, and pulled one out at random. It was a classic tweed jacket in a shimmering navy blue. "May I try this on?" Maya asked, her voice more confident than she felt. The associate's professional demeanor snapped back into place. "Of course, madam. This way." She led Mia to a private fitting room, its plush carpeting and soft lighting a world away from her apartment. The jacket slid on like it was made for her. She looked at herself in the mirror. For a second, she didn't recognize the woman staring back. The jacket transformed her, gave her an air of sophistication, of belonging. The associate fussed over the fit. "It is exquisite on you. It is from our new collection." "I'll take it." Maya said the words, feeling foreign on her tongue. The associate's eyes widened slightly. "Very good, madame." Maya walked back out to the main floor. The jacket still on, she approached the register, her path taking her directly past Arabella and Liam. She kept her head down, her dark hair shielding her face. She pulled the Centurion card from her simple tote bag and placed it on the counter. The effect was instantaneous. The cashier's eyes, which had barely registered her, widened in recognition of the black titanium. His posture straightened. The sales associate, who had been fawning over Arabella, suddenly looked over her professional smile, faltering as she saw the card. Even Liam, who was scanning the room with a bored expression, noticed. His eyes flicked to the card, then to Maya. He didn't recognize her from the restaurant. She had been a ghost in a uniform then, but he saw the card, and his expression shifted to a one of curiosity and assessment. He was sizing her up, categorizing her. The transaction was silent and swift. The cashier treated the card like a holy relic. "Thank you, Miss Rosie," he said, handing it back to her with a new level of reverence. Her purchase was carefully wrapped in tissue paper and placed in a beautiful glossy white bag with a white chamalea flower pinned to the handle. As Maya turned to leave, she deliberately met Liam's gaze for a fraction of a second. She gave him nothing. No smile, no acknowledgement, and then walked out of the store. Her hands were shaking as she got back into the waiting Mercedes. She had done it. She had walked into the lion's den, bought a jacket that cost more than her old car, and walked out unnoticed by her target, but noticed by the accomplice. She pulled out the new phone. Her fingers flew across the encrypted messaging app. Maya at Chanel. Arabella is here with her accomplice Liam. They are not siblings. They are partners. Overheard them discussing a children's art foundation. It's a front. Plan is to have JS transfer seed money. Then they will liquidate and disappear. The con is much bigger than cheating. She hit send. The delivered checkmark appeared instantly. A minute later, a reply came. JS, excellent work. Your instincts were correct. This is the larger problem I referred to. This foundation is their endgame. They are targeting my private collection, specifically Sunrise Over Vetoil by Monet. Arabella has been talking about how it would be the perfect centerpiece for a charity auction. She wants me to donate it to her foundation. Maya gasped. She knew the painting. It was one of Monet's most beloved works, worth an estimated 80 to 90 million. This wasn't just a con. It was the art heist of the century, hidden in plain sight. JS, you need to dig deeper. Arabella Dorsey is a ghost. It's an assumed identity. I've had my people run a background check, and it's a clean slate, which is impossible. She has to have a real identity she's hiding. She must have made a mistake somewhere, left a digital footprint. JS, your next task. Find that mistake. You have unlimited resources. Hire anyone you need. Private investigators, forensic accountants, ethical hackers. Become the director of your own intelligence agency. Find out who Arabella Dorsey really is. The car is at your disposal. Maya stared at the message, her world tilting on its axis. Hire PI's hackers. She was an art history student. What did she know about running an intelligence agency? But then she looked at the Chanel bag sitting beside her. She thought about the smug look on Arabella's face, and she thought about Corbin Langley, a man who, despite his immense power, had been made vulnerable by loneliness and trust. He had trusted Maya, a complete stranger, with this monumental task. He had empowered her. A new feeling began to displace the fear-determination. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She wasn't a victim of circumstance. JS had given her a sword. It was time to learn how to use it. She leaned forward, her voice clear and steady as she spoke to the driver. "Take me to the New York Public Library, the main branch on Fifth Avenue." The driver nodded, pulling smoothly into traffic. The investigation of Maya Rossi had begun. She would start with what she knew: art history and the meticulous research skills that had defined her academic life. Arabella had created a fictional character. Maya would use her knowledge of history and art to deconstruct it piece by piece until the ugly truth was exposed. The game was afoot, and for the first time in her life, Maya felt ready to play. The days that followed blurred into a surreal montage of purpose. Maya's small apartment transformed into a command center, the air thick with the thrill of the hunt. She attacked the problem as an art historian would, seeking the provenance of the forgery named Arabella Dorsey. The name itself, she quickly discovered through genealogical databases, was a lie, a phantom grafted onto a real aristocratic French family tree. Her first encrypted message to JS was concise. "Maya Dorsey's name is a fabrication. No record of her in the family's history." The reply was swift, providing the crucial breadcrumb: JS. "I suspected as much. She speaks of art with the fluency of a high-end gallery girl or auctioneer. Perhaps her past lies there." This insight shifted Mir's focus. A con artist wouldn't use her real name, but she couldn't change her face. This was where the true power of the black card came into play. Maya hired a boutique tech firm of white hat hackers, their fee a staggering sum that was approved without a blink. Her directive was simple. "I am looking for this woman," she wrote, attaching a candid photo of Arabella. "She may have worked in the European art world within the last 10 years, likely using a different name. I'm also looking for her male associate." For 3 tense days there was silence. Maya continued her acclimatization, a task she now understood was about psychological armor. Lunch at Purse, a tailored suit from the Row. These weren't indulgences, but strategic acquisitions. She was learning that in this world, clothing was armor, and your credit card was your weapon. On the 4th day, the email arrived. It contained a single grainy photograph from a 2018 Geneva newspaper article about a small bankrupt Galerie Dubois. The photo was of the staff. In the back, looking younger, was Arabella. Beside her, with a possessive arm around her waist, was Liam, but their names were Cecil Dubois and Marco Bianchi. The article detailed how the gallery's respected owner, Jean-Pierre Dubois, had died of a sudden heart attack. His daughter Cecile inherited the business. Within 6 months, the gallery was stripped of its assets and buried in debt. While Cecile and her boyfriend vanished, the authorities had ruled it a tragic mismanagement. No one suspected a con. Maya felt a cold surge of triumph. She had them. This was the provenance. She messaged JS immediately. Maya found them. Geneva 2018. She is Cecile Dubois. He is Marco Bianchi. They bankrupted her father's gallery after he died. This is their pattern. The response came back almost instantly, laced with a cold fury she could feel through the screen. JS, my God. Jean-Pierre Dubois was a friend. He spoke so proudly of his daughter. They used his death, his trust in her, as their exit strategy. The cruelty is unfathomable. The Monet, the fake children's foundation, it all clicked into place. This wasn't just a corn. It was the desecration of a man's legacy. JS, the charity gala, is in 3 days at the FIC. She thinks it's her coronation where I will announce the donation of the Monet. Instead, it will be her unmasking. You've given me the ammunition. Now we set the stage. Meet me tomorrow. 10:00 a.m. My office. The next morning, dressed in her new suit, Maya was escorted directly to Corbin Langley's penthouse office. The man who greeted her was not the weary victim from the restaurant, but a commander preparing for battle. "Maya," he said, shaking her hand firmly, "it is a profound pleasure to finally meet you properly. You've done what my entire security team could not. You saw the truth." He gestured to a screen on the wall displaying the photo of Cecile and Marco. I was lonely, and I was a fool for the fantasy she was selling. "The trap is set," Corbin stated, his voice hard. "At the gala during my speech, I will talk about my dear late friend Jean-Pierre Dubois, and then I will put this picture on the screen for 300 of the city's most powerful people to see. I will let Cecile, sitting at the front table, explain herself. It was a public execution." "Where do I fit in?" Maya asked. "You will be my guest of honor," Corbin said, a glint in his eye as he handed her a thick invitation. "I want you to be there to see the conclusion of the job you started." The night of the gala at the Frick Collection, Maya was transformed. A midnight blue couture gown and loaned diamonds were her armor. She was no longer Maya Rossi, the waitress. She was a woman of mystery seated at the most important table in the room. She saw them immediately. Cecile, radiant in crimson, was basking in the adoration, playing the role of the proud fiancé to perfection. Liam Marco was at a nearby table looking smug. Cecile's eyes widened in shock as she spotted Ma, her mind unable to compute how the little waitress she'd had fired was now here a guest of honor. She whispered something to Corbin, who merely smiled. The air was electric with tension. Finally, Corbin walked to the podium. A hush fell. He began by speaking of art and philanthropy, praising his partner Arabella and her passion for creating a foundation for children. Cecile pined a triumphant smile on her face. This was her moment. This foundation, Corbin continued, his voice resonating through the hall, was inspired by the legacy of a dear friend of mine, a man I respected immensely. His name was Jean-Pierre Dubois. At the front table, Maya saw Cecile's smile shatter. The color drained from her face. Jean-Pierre had a daughter he adored. Corbin went on, his voice laced with sorrow. But after his death, his gallery was gutted and his legacy destroyed. For years, I wondered what happened to his daughter and her boyfriend. And then, thanks to the integrity of a truly remarkable individual, I found out. He clicked a button. The massive screen behind him lit up with the grainy photo from the Geneva newspaper. The faces of Cecil Dubois and Marco Bianchi stared out at the silent, shocked crowd. It turns out Corbin set his voice like ice. They didn't disappear. They just changed their names, and they are with us here tonight. He turned his head and looked directly at his fiancée. "Isn't that right, Cecile?" A collective gasp ripped through the room. Every eye swiveled to the front table. Cecile was a statue of horror, her carefully constructed world demolished. Marco was already bolting for the exit, only to be intercepted by discreet security men. Cecile stumbled to her feet, knocking her chair over, and fled into the glare of 100 staring eyes. There was nowhere to run. Later, as the chaos subsided, Corbin found Maya in the FIC's quiet courtyard. "It's over," he said. "It is," she agreed. "Your courage that night started all of this," he said, his eyes full of sincere gratitude. "You saved me from more than financial loss. The Centurion card is yours to keep, of course, but I have another offer. My work in unmasking frauds like Cecile. I don't want to do it alone anymore." He paused, his gaze direct. "I'm formalizing it. The Langley Art Integrity Foundation. It needs a director." Someone with impeccable integrity, sharp observational skills, and a proven talent for investigation. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. "The job is yours if you want it," Corbin said. "You'll have a real office on the floor below mine. You'll be doing what you were born to do, not serving the powerful but protecting the beautiful." Maya looked at the magnificent sculptures surrounding them, timeless treasures that people like Cecile sought to exploit. She thought of the hopelessness she had felt just weeks ago, a feeling that now seemed a lifetime away. She had done the right thing, and it had led her here. Looking back at Corbin Langley, no longer a waitress but an equal, a confident smile spread across her face. "Corbin," she said, "I accept." From a simple act of integrity in the face of impossible odds, an entire world was shattered, and a new one was built. Maya Ross's story isn't just about the incredible reward she received. It's a powerful reminder that true wealth isn't measured by bank accounts, but by courage and character. She chose to do the right thing, not knowing where it would lead. And in doing so, she didn't just expose a lie. She uncovered her own extraordinary destiny. Her warning to a billionaire was a single stone thrown into a pond, and the ripples changed everything. What choices do we face every day where we could choose courage over silence? If this story of justice and unexpected fortune resonated with you, please show your support. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to see that doing the right thing can change everything. And be sure to subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable real-life dramas.